I'm back to give a longer term impression of the Logitech MX mechanical keyboard. I did a first impressions a few months ago after having this keyboard for about a week. Now I've had it for around 3 months. I have a couple things that have come up that I felt like were worth mentioning for people who might be in the market for this keyboard. Starting with the overall quality, I'm still mostly happy with the quality of this keyboard. I did mention in the first impressions video that the keycaps felt a little bit thin, maybe a little bit brittle. That's still the case. I feel like the keycaps are the biggest weakness in terms of the quality and the presentation of this keyboard. Not only are they thin and very brittle feeling, like easily snappable perhaps, but just the feel of them, they're slick. A lot of keyboards have a kind of a texture to them. They don't pick up the oils from your fingers as much. They have more contour. They'll be the first thing to start showing a lot of wear, the first thing you might want to replace. Unfortunately, it's come to my attention after watching a few other videos about this that all of the keycaps are standard except the spacebar. For some reason, Logitech made the spacers or something not the standard size. So you could buy a set of replacement caps for this keyboard and replace every key except the spacebar, which is pretty stupid. I don't know, I'm sure at some point that some manufacturer of keycaps will release a spacebar meant for this keyboard. Maybe Logitech will do it. The other problem with the build, and this might not matter to a lot of people, but it only does have one angle for elevating the keyboard. So I don't like the keyboard to be flat like this. I like to have a little bit of an angle, but there's only one setting for that. Another annoyance for me is that I wish you could just leave the backlight on. I know that's for saving the battery life, which is impressive. I'll get to that in a second. I still think as a user, you should have the ability to configure it, whether you want to have the backlight on all the time, whether you want it to do this auto shut off when you don't use it, it just kind of fades out, and then it'll come back on when it senses your hand's proximity. So it's been super hot this summer. It's been unremittently hot for most of the summer. So I always, I should say, have the shades completely drawn just so that the sun doesn't heat up this room even more than it already is. When you move away from the keyboard for a second and then you want to go back and start typing or using it, you might not be able to see the key that you're looking for. Some people will be like, well, you should just know what the keys are. Coming back to battery life, however, it's really great. I do leave the backlight on and I never remember to turn off the keyboard when I'm done with it for the day, so it's always on. After 3 months of use, I've only charged it one time. As of now, it's saying it still has 20% battery life. In my first impressions video, I only used the Bluetooth function, so I didn't test the Logi Bolt receiver that it comes with. But now I've been using the Logi Bolt receiver with my Windows PC. One thing worth noting, and this might be obvious, is if you need to go into the BIOS or to the UEFI, you cannot do that over a Bluetooth connection because Bluetooth isn't enabled until you get into the operating system. You can access the UEFI with the Bolt receiver. However, I've noticed my Windows PC has become unstable for some reason and it often crashes. It doesn't just restart automatically. I have to go into the UEFI to kind of like unfuck it or unstick it. And even though the Bolt is connected, at that point, it seems like when it crashes and goes to the UEFI, it doesn't read the keyboard. So that's something to keep in mind. If you are frequently going into the UEFI, this probably isn't going to be the most seamless keyboard for that. I do keep a wired keyboard just sitting here in case I do have that issue. Given that problem with potentially connecting to the BIOS or to the UEFI, I really think you should be able to run this as a wired keyboard. The software itself is nice because there is a lot of functionality to it. What is annoying, and this might not pertain to a lot of people, but I have an MX Master 2S and this doesn't work with Logi Plus. It's not supported yet, it says, so I don't know if it's going to come eventually. So I essentially have to have 2 pieces of software from Logitech to control both of these devices. I don't know if that's Logitech's not so subtle way of encouraging me to upgrade my mouse to a newer one, or if there's something in this older hardware that can't be supported. Whatever, it just seems a little bit anti-consumer. I find that it's a little bit expensive. The quality of the keyboard I think is fine. It's using Kale switches, which are not expensive. They're a cheaper key switch. They're not bad, but it's not like their Cherry MX keys, which tend to be more expensive. Before using this, I was using a Keychron K2, and it has all the same functionality, so it can be run as a Bluetooth keyboard and switch between multiple devices, different operating systems, etc. You can also run that as a wired keyboard. This one seems to be a little bit more sophisticated in terms of its ability to switch between devices. It switches faster. That keychron sometimes would get hung up and not want to switch, especially when the battery was drained and you plugged it in. So this keyboard just works a little bit more seamlessly. Is that little bit of more seamless functionality and the much longer battery life, by the way, the battery life on this is really impressive. Is that worth the premium price? Because those keychrons are half or maybe less than half the price of the Logitech equivalent. Well, I hope that was relatively short and to the point. I just wanted to give an update on my impressions of this keyboard. If you want a sound comparison or you just want to hear how this sounds, check my first impressions video. I'll put a link to it here. And there's timestamps in that, so you can just jump to that point if you want to. I tested it against 3 or 4 different keyboards, plus the MacBook Pro, so you can get an idea for how it sounds.